Esteemed audience, welcome to the show that gives high school students a safe space to discuss their ideas. This is the Great Debaters Contest, Season 9. I am your host, Esperanza Kapanga.
And I am Chris Boru. The bone of contention between our intellectual teams today is land subdivision is the leading cause of unsustainable food production.
In the proposition, we have Karima Girls High School.
And in the opposition, we have Precious Blood Secondary School, Riruta. Proposal number 1, you have 3 minutes to make a statement.
Land subdivision is the leading cause of unsustainable food production. What is land subdivision? Land subdivision is the partitioning of land into smaller portions. What is subdivision itself? Subdivision is subdividing into small portions what has already been divided. What is unsustainability? Unsustainability is not being capable to prolong or continue something. Food production is the process of preparing food by converting raw materials into ready-made food products, either in the home or in food industries. Definitely, this is the leading cause of unsustainable food production. The country's population is growing day in, day out. From 2009 to 2019, people increased in the country from 40 million to 51 million people. Where are these people going to live? They will not live on space. There's no way. They need land subdivided for them to be settled. Now, when these people are settled, it leads to urbanization. Urbanization has so many things that are leading to unsustainable food production. One of them is wastage of land. Okay, so these urban centers need a drainage system. This drainage system is going to be deposited in a piece of land. And let me tell you, it's not a small piece of land. It's a really big piece of land. This piece of land will go to waste. Hence, it would have been used to grow crops. It would have been used for agriculture, making this place a very productive and fertile place, hence reducing unsustainable food production. Another thing, inheritance. We are Africans, and of course, with no doubt, we are going to give our land from one generation to another. Once this may be an example, this man with 7 children divides their land. There's only a probability of 2% of that land to be used by the benefactors for agriculture. This is from www.foodmap.co.ke. Now, the rest of the land has gone to waste. I mean, the 8% are going to invest in entrepreneurial, they're going to have offices, they're going to build their homestead. Well, this 2%, we are not even sure if this agriculture will work. So, the 8% will go to waste, and people, they're not willing to venture into agriculture. So, when these benefactors use their land on other things, the 8% that was being used by this farmer to grow crops for agriculture, this will definitely reduce our food production. Sheila Kavinyamuli, thank you very much. Karima Girls.
First proposal, you have 3 minutes to make a statement.
Land subdivision is said to be the leading cause of unsustainable food production in Kenya. I am Tremi Onyango from Precious Blood Secondary School, Riruta, here to strongly oppose this motion based on the following reasons. Land subdivision, to begin with, is an act of subdividing parcels of land into smaller portions for better utilization or for sale. Now, we have been told about factors such as inheritance and the idea that real estate is growing in our country such that we have a large population and all these people need places to live. I'd like to draw our attention to something called the Agricultural Land Commission Act, which states that agricultural land reserves are supposed to be created per every 300 acres of land in every single region, such that we have an area known as an agricultural land reserve, which is supposed to be used specifically for agriculture, regardless of whether or not you own 30 acres of land in that area. If you are put in an agricultural land reserve zone, you are supposed to you are supposed to utilize 30% of that land specifically for agriculture. How can we say that land subdivision is the main cause of unsustainable food production in our country when we have not looked at factors such as inadequate policies of our government? For example, the government is supposed to subsidize agricultural inputs such as fertilizers and pesticides for the small-scale farmers who cannot afford to do this for themselves. Subsidy is an act whereby the government meets the cost of production of a certain commodity so as to reduce its price on the market. In the last year, we have seen that due to the failure of the maize crop in Kenya, the government subsidized the cost of maize flour such that a 2 kg packet was going for 90 shillings. Now, according to the 2018 World Bank Kenya Economic Update, we were told that our subsidy by the government is not adequate because we find that the government subsidizes the large-scale farmers who already own contracts with private suppliers. Hence, the subsidy does not go to help the small-scale farmers who are the ones who are struggling to meet the sustainable food production in our country, because the majority of our large-scale farmers produce their food for importation. We depend on our small-scale farmers for our sustainable food production in this country. Another thing we have to look at is the tax policies on agriculture in this country. In 2013, value-added tax was introduced, and this levied a 16% import duty on all products to be used in the manufacture of fertilizers, herbicides, and herbicides in this country to be used for public use. These are the ones that supply the small-scale farmers in our country. They are levied 16%, an additional 10% import duty, 25% exit tax. On the other hand, all already packaged products in this country are given a zero-rated status. This means that they are not levied any tax at all. How can we say that land subdivision is the main cause of unsustainable food production when we have not considered that an average farmer will spend only 50% of what they are paid to try to purchase the things that they need? Thank you.
Second proposer, you have 3 minutes for cross-examination.
When you say that 30% of acres is to be used specifically for agriculture, and that the subsidy issued by the government to farmers is actually benefiting the large-scale farmers, and actually is less advantaging to the small-scale farmers, this revolves around land subdivision. Because for you to be a small-scale or a large-scale farmer, that means the land was subdivided. It all lands to one point, land subdivision. Now, if all this was put into use, the 30% acres use of land, and even the subsidies, then why do we still have people living in semi-arid and arid areas living with hunger? Then why do we have people going hungry each and every day? Let me tell you something. Do you know, according to BBC News, that in every 4 minutes of every single day in this world, 4 children die out of hunger? Do you know that every year 9.1 million people die out of hunger? Then, if this is the case, why do we have such a high number of people dying out of hunger? Do you know this all results due to this poor use of land subdivision? Now, land subdivision is actually time-consuming. For one to subdivide land fully, you have to go a long legal process. You have to go from the land control board to the land surveyors. Now, these land surveyors will have to visit the tract of land. They will have to take measurements, and they will have to subdivide it. And land is not even a piece of candy that you just divide. You take one, the other one takes one, I'll eat the rest. No. Land is a very precious resource. Land is very scarce, and so land is treated critically. So this will take time. Now, after all that time, these land subdivisions that have been issued, they will have to be given new registration numbers, and it will take time for them to be recorded under the land registry. This is according to the KLB Agriculture textbook, book 4. Now, let me ask you, before you get a title deed, it will also take time. Now, if you queue from morning to evening for Huduma numbers and you don't get it immediately, you're given a notification card. Now, what about this process that does not require present supervision in Kenya? Do you know how much time it takes? For you to get a title deed, it takes around 12 days. And another 2 weeks to confirm whether that land is actually under your name. This is according to the LinkedIn.com. In 12 days, you can actually weed, you can actually plant, and you can water your seeds. So you'll actually be taking a lot of time. Now, there is also this issue of actually applying land. You have to obtain land documents. You have to obtain valuation for stamp duties. This is 4% tax on urban land and 2% tax on rural land. This is actually an increment on cost. Now, if we have 44 million people, according to the national population, living below the poverty line, then how much are we going to add on this? I don't think it's worth it. Use the land as it is. I am Saron Joki. Thank you.
Second opposer, you have 3 minutes for cross-examination.
Land subdivision. My fellow proposers, would tell you that land subdivision is all bad. But there is no such thing as all bad. I would like to address my fellow proposers' point on the fact that there's subdivision of large-scale and small-scale pieces of land. Before you actually are allowed by the Kenyan government to subdivide your land, you have to go through the Kenya National Agricultural Land Commission, who will certify whether your land is viable and can actually be subdivided or whether it is unnecessary. And yes, it's a long process, but would you tell a farmer who has suffered consecutively for several years that it will take you too long to subdivide your land and in the end you'll get so much money? Do you think they will mind the time? We live in a time that the odds outweigh the means. It takes time, yes, but it brings financial stability to families. I would like to quote Honorable Keraito Murungi, while in 2014, as he served as the chairman to the Senate Agricultural Committee. He stated and confirmed statistics that there were more people suffering from hunger, there were more people dying from hunger than those dying from terrorist attacks. Take a moment to internalize that. 2014. How was the Kenyan security at that point? How bad does our food production have to be in order for there to be people dying of hunger, outweighing those dying from terrorist attacks? And we cannot say that it's land subdivision that's currently affecting us when we are suffering from big things, bigger tragedies, such as climate change. I'll take you back to last month, where we had extreme droughts in the northern and eastern regions of Kenya. Thousands of people died. Climate change is affecting our agricultural system. Our farmers are using poor methods of farming. That is affecting their produce. We have poor storage systems for all the hard work farmers put into their art. I would like to call it an art, because none of us would be alive if it wasn't for the food production we acquire every single day in our homes, in our schools. Our farmers do all they can, but they are not sustained enough. Our government, actually, in African countries, we are required to give 11% of our total budget to agriculture. In the previous budget, Kenya only gave 4%. In the 2018 budget, the agricultural sector only received 3%. We should fear for our agricultural system. This is our chance to stand. Fight against climate change. Fight against corruption in agricultural sectors. Subdivision is not our main issue in the agricultural sector. We have other bigger elephants to hunt. Thank you.
The proposers have been asked, which one is the bigger problem, the land subdivision or the methods that people employ in their agriculture? The opposers, on the other hand, have been asked, with all the reasons they have stated for unsustainable food production, which one is the leading cause of this problem? Proposer number 3, you have 3 minutes to respond.
Land subdivision is a leading cause of unsustainable food production. I agree. Why, you may ask? Because for one, it leads to a strain on our natural resources. Leading to a strain on our natural resources, look at the case study in Nyandarua County. In Nyandarua County, we find that after the 2007-2008 post-election violence, most of the people affected were resettled in Nyandarua County. And we know that Nyandarua County is a forested area. So they had to actually log in order to obtain settlement. After logging, we know the forests are water catchment areas. So after logging, it means that rain no longer poured with intensity as it did before. And you know that the rain doesn't actually only assist the forest, but also the surrounding areas. Nyandarua is a major agricultural production area. So after the rain stopped pouring like it used to, the agricultural produce decreased. This is why you find there's an increase in the price of potatoes by 400%. A bucket of potatoes that used to cost 200 bob, right now costs over 1,000 bob. Now on to the question that I was asked. So between land subdivision and the farming methods, which actually influences the unsustainable food production? All of these problems, they all circumlocate around the land subdivision. In that, according to the size of my land, the size of my land will actually determine the method I use to farm. If my land is small, you don't expect me to use a machine. But if my land is big, then I'll use a machine, and therefore my production will be better. So all of this actually, it just traces back to land subdivision. Then also, you find that we actually have to stop seeing just here. Let's see beyond our noses. When we actually talk about climate change, what brings about climate change? Climate change is brought about by global warming, right? So if I subdivide my land, and I'm told that if my land is small, then I'll have to pay a higher tax, then I'd rather actually practice industrialization on that land. I'll set up my industries on that land. After I set up my industries, I will emit gases into the air, which will actually cause global warming. So we won't actually blame the industries on we won't actually blame global warming on the industries. We'll blame the land subdivision. If I didn't subdivide my land, I wouldn't have to practice this. Also, we find that an article was released on Monday, 11 September 2017 by www.nation.co.ke, whereby Kisii Director of Agriculture, Mr. Nathan Soire, actually stated that subdivision of land is actually causing a decrease in food production. He continued saying that continued subdivision of land will lead to a major food crisis. He continued and said that currently the land units are too small. They're just too small, therefore practicing agriculture will be so uneconomical. Also, we also find that you actually have to dig a little deeper. It doesn't matter. We're not saying that all these other causes don't lead to inadequate food production. We're saying that they all circumlocate around land subdivision. The name is Nicole Akinyi, Karima Girls High School. Thank you.
Opposers, you have 3 minutes to respond to your question.
We can consider what we want to consider, but till proven right, it can't be right. Valerie Lorenza Odete from Precious Blood Riruta strongly opposing the motion that states that land subdivision is the leading cause of unsustainable food production. So a question was raised to us that to answer the leading cause of unsustainable food production. And Standard Media, dated 30th May, actually cites that the leading cause of unsustainable food production is the climate change. So all other problems cited, such as poor policy and corruption, are products and are the problems, and they can be controlled, but climate change is quite difficult to control. Yes. And I would like to rectify the third proposer. So a bucket of potatoes currently costs a maximum of 500 to 550 Kenyan shillings in harsh economy. A study conducted by Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations revealed that monoculture is still being practiced in the world. And monoculture is the growing of a type of the same type of crop over a given period of time on the same piece of land. And this leads to depletion of soil nutrients. And we all know that crops cannot do well when the soil nutrients are depleted. And this is not related to land subdivision in any way. So what I'm trying to say is that land subdivision is not the leading one. We already have factors such as monoculture, poor policies, corruption, climate change, and also, as much as we think that land subdivision is the leading cause, it's actually helping in that land subdivision promotes easier management of pests and diseases. This is because when you subdivide the land, you get to concentrate on a smaller piece of land, so you can control the pests and diseases which pose a great threat to the crops, and this will actually increase the food production. And poor mechanization is another cause. So farmers in marginalized areas do not have access to proper farming equipment, and this is really threatening the output, because for you to have sustainable food production, you have to have proper farming equipment, and without them, land being subdivided or not, it will still be unsustainable. Point taken. I do not see any reason why we are still debating on this motion. It is clear that land subdivision is not the leading cause of unsustainable food production.
Proposers, you have 1 minute to make a final submission.
We can consider what we want to consider, but not until proven. Aren't dying people enough proof? Or do we need more so that we are convinced? You know, when you talk of monoculture, we can produce different type of crops, and you can even produce different breeds of animals, then complement one another in order to curb this instead of subdividing land so we all selfishly produce for our own sakes. You know what? Instead of focusing on other issues, we are trying to chase Vision 2030. Are we chasing it when we are dying? I don't even know if we are going to make it with this population decreasing. I'm worried. You know, we can actually, instead of focusing on land subdivision and all its costs, focus on what Ireland did. The Irish Republic focused on measuring technology in farms. So it actually increased their economy by 80%. This is according to prc.co.ke. It increased their economy by 80%. Now, somebody said that we should fear about our agricultural sector. I am worried and I am afraid because I know anyone can be next in this crisis. And I am Sarah Njoki. Thank you.
Proposers, you have 1 minute to make a final statement.
It's high time we stop being so pessimistic. And I'll start. Subdivision is not all bad. And here's why. Subdivision of land not only benefits us as a country, but also the farmer. He's able to perfectly and orderly organize himself such that he can assess the small acres of land he has to take care of. If you do not know what that means maximum produce, minimal damages to crops. That is a benefit. As my fellow opposer said, easy control of pests and diseases. Again, maximizing our produce. Subdivision is not all bad, and it's high time we see it. It will help us. Yes, it has its cons, but the government has set in regulations that actually do help to prevent it being a common thing amongst all Kenyans. We have moved forward into a new era. Most people are not concerned about what they'll inherit from their parents. They're mostly concerned about what they can gain. My name is Sylvia Wamboi, and I strongly oppose this motion. I'm from Precious Blood, Riruta. Thank you.
Karima girls. Sheila, you took on the stage and you introduced us to the motion and you tried to give it your best in the definition. However, also there was a point at which when you are defining subdivision, you defined the word using the word. So you want to watch on that so that any word that is in the motion, don't use it to define it. However, at the last part of your timing, I don't know if you were losing breath or what was happening. I sort of felt like you were a little bit lost. If you feel you get to a point where you're sort of losing your feet, just take a breath and then gather yourself and start again, okay? Sarah, you did a great job of cross-examining the first speaker from the other team, and I could also tell you are very convicted of your points and you are passionate, and of course also you cross-examined, but I felt you could have done a little better in the cross-examination. Nicole, you took on as the last speaker of this, and for me, I felt like you were the strongest speaker in your team. I could see a lot of confidence and mastery of language. I could see passion, I could see conviction in what you were speaking about. So great job for your team.
Now, I think there's a lot of research that could have still gone on with this subject, because we know with overpopulation, which are factors I hope that you could have mentioned, this issues of land subdivision still continues on. And of course, there are also policies in many other nations, and I want to thank Tremi for saying that what we are lacking is inadequate policies, the tax policies as well and the likes. I think you started off your team very well, a good mastery of topic as well. You told us that you really took time to research and do all that. So that was commendable of you as the first speaker. Sylvia as well, good cross-examination, and the submissions as well, like climate change as the leading cause. I felt though, for your end, more passion and delivery, okay? You want to command that so that people can still listen to you much. I think you can take a leaf from Tremi as well in that. Valerie, same case as well, just a little bit of your style, okay? Because you had very amazing submissions. So it's just purely style. As I keep saying, debate is not just about the submissions you give, also your style matters a lot. And I love the fact that you try to argue that actually land subdivision makes it easy to control pests and diseases, hence more sustainable food production. It was a way of really arguing it out in a very nice way.
Okay, thank you. I shall start by saying this was not a very simple motion, and the two teams have really tried. From our table here, we are pleased with what you've done. This is a serious motion, if I may say, and you have tried. Maybe what the two teams did not really bring out was the way this motion is worded. It is not tying you to Kenya only, it is open. We could have heard about this large-scale farming, maybe in Canada, Argentina, USA, and all that, where those who want to do farming are given land for that. Those who are not interested in maybe crop or animal farming, they can reside in urban areas. Maybe you could also have explored that and show us the advantages of that. The example from Kisii County is real. We don't actually need any research. Anybody who has gone to Kisii knows the issue of land subdivision, how it affects this food production. Both teams, I feel you've tried.
Precious Blood, Riruta. The judges awarded you 70%. Let's give them a round of applause. Karima Girls High School. The judges awarded you 70%. It's a tie. Let's appreciate both schools.
Ladies and gentlemen, such debates will only be found on the Great Debaters Contest. Remember, the debate may be over, but the conversation still continues with the hashtag GDC for SDGs as we continue the conversation around Sustainable Development Goals. Until next time, I've been your host, Chris Boru.
And I am Esperanza Kapanga. See you in the next debate.